Welcome to chapter 19 of the book of 2Chronicles. It begins, and Jehoshaphat, king of Judah, returned to his house in peace and to Jerusalem. That is after the battle at Ramoth-Gilead, where the king of Israel was killed, Ahab. So Jehoshaphat returns, and came forth to meet him Jehu, the son of Hanani the prophet. Hanani was the man who came to King Asa and condemned him for going and paying Adar, the king of Syria, to defeat Baasha, the king of Israel. And now the son of Hanani is doing the same thing with Jehoshaphat. And Jehu said to King Jehoshaphat, shall you help a sinner, or do you befriend one being detested by the Lord? Well, that's a good question. And everyone's a sinner, so helping a sinner, Jesus helped sinners and told us to help anybody. And basically the Good Samaritan was a perfect example of a person, and this Samaritans were considered sinners. They were not true Jews. There were some people that were brought in to that area from different parts of Mesopotamia. Should you help a sinner? Well, then do you befriend one detested by the Lord? Now he gives it a condition, befriending one detested by the Lord. Well, as I see it, Jesus tells us, yes, we're to help sinners. We're to reach out to them whatever way we can, and our enemies. But joining in the sin is another story. No, we're not to join in their sin. But helping sinners, yes, but in the Old Testament, the people were told to stay pure, holy, separate from everybody else. And so they are under a different rule than we Christians are, because Jesus basically gave new instructions for the Christians. But joining in the sin of others, I have a friend who I see quite often, and he is avowedly not a Christian, and in fact he is against most of the things, doesn't believe that there is a God, and whenever he smokes pot, he thinks he's the Nobel laureate in understanding everything in the world. And I can see his condition, but I don't join in on it. But it's like I don't go looking for him to join what he's doing, but yet he comes and sees me. I hit a knock on the door. He'll come for coffee. I meet him at a coffee shop, and he's there, and we talk. And I always talk about the Lord. I try to bring in the Lord all the time. I say a little prayer when I see him, and sometimes he seems receptive, and other times it's just the opposite, but he keeps coming. So am I supposed to, because he is a sinner, turn him away? I don't think Jesus would want that. I believe a lot of people that we are put in our paths that are non-believers and are sinners, that basically we are going to be called as witnesses for the prosecution. There are another man I knew for years. I talked to him the same way as this fellow I was just mentioning, and the other man was older. This man is in his early 70s, and the other man was in his almost 90s. Ed. And Ed, he would listen to what I had to say, but he'd never understand it, believe in any of it. I ended up being with him on his deathbed, bringing him Haagen-Dazs ice cream and feeding it. And when he left this body, then that was the end of Ed as far as this earth. But I believe that, unfortunately, when somebody that I know dies and they're not believers, I don't go to their funeral. Just kind of made that. I'm not saying you should do that. I just have made that a personal choice of not going to the funeral, because I know the next time I see him is going to be in front of the judgment seat, and I may be called as a witness for the prosecution. Ed may say, well, I didn't know when he's standing in front of God. I didn't realize it. And then God's going to call. He says, Charles Vanderpool, are you here? Yes, sir. Come up here. Did you tell this man this and this and this and this and this? And it'll all be said yes and all these things. And so I will be a witness for the prosecution. I don't look forward to being the witness for the prosecution. And I don't go to their funerals because the next time I see them will be that because they haven't accepted the Lord Jesus Christ. In fact, they've rejected the Lord. But as long as they are coming and haven't, now if they blaspheme, well, this first friend I was mentioning, he does when he gets high on pot. Then he'll start blaspheming. He blames Christians. Basically, that's not the same as there's no God, and he blames Christians for all the problems. And I don't know, sometimes I don't want to listen to it, and I don't want to see him again, but then again, he pops up. And so the Lord has him in my life, and I suppose you all have the same kind of situation, I would imagine. But because of this, the anger of the Lord took place against you, joining in the sinner. So now, if I joined in with them and agreed, then the anger of the Lord would be against me, and I really don't want that. That would be worse. But good words were found in you, that is Jehoshaphat, for you removed the sacred groves from the land of Judah and straightened out your heart to seek after the Lord. So the Lord basically is overlooking Jehoshaphat's joining with the king of Israel, and because of the heart, he sees the heart, and he knows, I guess, that Jehoshaphat's heart was to seek after the Lord and to remove the sacred groves from the land and straighten out your heart. Well, we can learn something about that. Basically, we would remove sin in our lives, straighten our heart to go on the straight way. The early church was called the way, odos. And this is what we are expected to do. And hopefully that our love for Christ and his love for us will bring us the forgiveness of the sins and the condemnation that we really deserve. And Jehoshaphat dwelt in Jerusalem. And again he went forth to the people from Beersheba, Virsavae, unto Oros Ephraim. Now, that is basically, Beersheba is the southernmost city of down by the Negev, southernmost part of Israel, and Ephraim is on the border of the north part, of Judah. Beersheba on the south side of the Negev of Judah. And so the whole country of Judah, and he turned them unto the Lord God of their fathers. So he makes sure that they know of the Lord. It's wonderful to have a leader that does that. And he placed judges in all the cities of Judah, the fortified ones, in cities by city. And he said to the judges, and now the rest of this, most of this chapter all has to do with the judges and justice. And he said to the krites, a critic is a derivative, know what you do. Whatever you do, know what you're doing. Do it right. For not unto man do you judge, but to the Lord. And with you are the words of judgment. So whatever we do with the Lord, or whatever we do, period, know that we are doing it for the Lord. Whether it's a judging, our acceptance, everything that we do it for the Lord, not for man. I look at what I'm doing here with going through these videos. I look, and sometimes there's only one or two people have watched it. I'm spending a lot of time, and I have hundreds of them out there. It really hasn't been seen by very many people. And do I sit here and say, well, I'm not going to do any more because nobody cares? I suppose that has crossed my mind, but whenever that has crossed my mind, I try to come back. Who am I doing this for? Am I doing it for the people? Well, yes, sort of. Or am I doing it for the Lord? I am doing it for the Lord because the Lord has put it on my heart 25, 30 years ago to do the Apostolic Bible. I didn't know what was going to happen with the Apostolic Bible. It just started as a Bible study. But now, oh gosh, I've had 50,000 people register for the free downloads. Thousands of printed editions have went out. Hundreds, well over 100 countries. So God had his plan. And who am I to sit here and try to figure out 25-year plan of God? They tried that in the Soviet Union. They had these 5-year plans and failed miserably. So who am I to make a long-term plan? So how does that relate to what I'm doing here with these videos? There's something in me that feels like whatever I'm saying here is maybe for a few people now, but basically I think that somehow the Lord may preserve these video seminars someplace in the future, and you of the future will be hearing them. And maybe the Lord has a lot of people that will hear the things, because maybe the word won't be, because God says that the people will seek the word and they won't find it. So maybe sometime in the future these videos will be used and will be valued, because I am going through the word and bringing all the things out, not missing anything, not missing a word. So I do it for the Lord, and I look, the future is, who knows what the Lord has planned. In verse 7, and now let the fear of the Lord be upon you, and guard and act. So whatever I'm doing here and saying, I don't want to say the wrong thing. Maybe sometimes I have, but sometimes it's like things I say, and it's like, wow, should I be saying that? Then I prayed to the Lord, and I let it out. And so for whatever it is, the fear of the Lord is there on me. For injustice is not with the Lord our God. So these judges are being sent out, and they are not to be unjust judges. It says not admiring a face. What that means is if it was a friend, you give him the benefit and find him innocent or whatever, and give him the good judgment. Or it could be a wealthy person, admiring a face of a person, or standing if it was an important person compared to the other person who was poor and nobody liked him. That's not what the judge is to judge justly. Nor taking bribes. Somebody gives the judge money to judge for their case, not to do that. It's to be judging people. And same with us in our judging people. We're not to admire somebody just because he's wealthy or famous or whatever. Now, that doesn't mean you shouldn't give somebody that is famous or has done things the glory due. I mean, some people have done important things, and I think to recognize that there's nothing wrong with that. But you don't want to take that person's side over somebody else's just because of his fame or fortune. And indeed, in Jerusalem, Jehoshaphat placed from out of the Levites and the priests of the patriarchs of Judah. So this is where he got his judges. Now, the judges in this country of Judah had the law of the Torah, the first 5 books of Moses, and they had that law. But now the law of Israel was different. They made up their own, and it doesn't say what their laws were, but they weren't the same things. Now, what happens when a country has different laws? And the judges, the United States is a mess, as I see it in 2017. This is September the 5th, and a lot of Muslim people have moved into the United States, and they want Sharia law, which is completely different than the law of the United States. And then there's the law of the United States, which basically allows for homosexuality, it allows for adultery, it allows for a lot of things that at one time they were against the law in the United States, but the law has been weakened, and the law of God has been put aside for this new law, and who knows what is going to happen in the future. For the judgment of the Lord, these people, and to judge the ones dwelling in Jerusalem. And he gave charge to them, the judges, saying, Thus you shall do in the fear of the Lord, in truth and with a full heart. You should not just do it because I'm saying it, but you should want to do the right thing. You want to judge the right way, and you say a prayer and ask the Lord's help in making the decisions that you would have to make if you are a judge. And it's an awesome thing to be a judge. There's a judge in the town I live in, and I don't want to mention his name, but I've been in front of him for a speeding ticket, and it was a little speed trap in a small town. It was like 6 o'clock on Easter morning, and nobody on the road, and the mile speed limit went from 45 to 35 to 30. And I saw the 45, and I knew it was going to be a 30, and he stopped me, and state police, and said I was doing over 35 in the 35, but I was doing 30 when I got down to where I was supposed to be. But yet he gave me the ticket, and the judge. So I knew the best thing at the time to do with a judge is to respect him. So I, prayed to the Lord what I would say, and I went there and I said, Judge so-and-so, and I mentioned his name, Judge, I'll say Smith. Judge Smith, I know that the greatest attribute of a judge is mercy. And Judge Smith, I pour myself out on the mercy of Judge Smith, because I was going through this area, and there was the policeman was there, and everybody knows about this little speed trap. So after I give him a spiel, and so Judge Smith, and so he looks and he says, well, you're guilty, but is 25 too much? No, I can handle $25. I mean, it was like $300 or $400 ticket. And so another time he let me off. It was actually earlier, a couple of years, and I had just moved to Oregon, and I normally I always put my seatbelt on, but I didn't. I forgot, and we were leaving, and I got stopped, got a ticket for the seatbelt, and I was trying to get on this special Oregon car insurance that was really a good price, and but you had to have a perfect record. So I went in there, and the same judge, Judge Smith, I was hoping to get on Oregon's this insurance company plan, but with a record I won't be able to, so I just asked for whatever you can do or something. And so he said, guilty. And so I went to pay the ticket, and they said, well, Judge Smith wants to talk to you. So I went in to see Judge Smith, and he says, well, what I'm going to do, I didn't want to say it out in public, but what I'm going to do is if you drive for 1 year without any tickets, then we will refund your $30 for the seatbelt ticket, and it won't be on your record, so now you can get the insurance. And I went, all right. So, wow, that was just really a wonderful judge. And that the judges were like that. It's just wonderful. And every man with a judgment coming unto you of your brothers dwelling in their cities, whether between blood for blood, or that's some type of criminal fighting with somebody or killing somebody, and between the order and the commandment, and for ordinances and judgments, that you shall warn them that they shall not sin against the Lord, that there will not be anger against you and against your brothers. Thus you shall do, and you shall not sin. So if you don't do the right thing, then you're basically maybe held accountable for what they were going to be punished for, because you're doing actually the same thing, or if not worse, going along with it. Now, he said between order, commandment, ordinances, and judgments. Now, in the 100, is it the longest Psalm, was it 119, 118, 119? This is brought out over and over again. Order, commandment, ordinances, and judgments. And an order generally is something that prostagmatos is something that's short-lived. I can give you an order to go do something, not to do this or to do that, and once it's done, that's it. A commandment is something that's long-lived or forever. Don't do this, period. It's a long-lived thing. An ordinance generally is something to do with like a building codes, something, and generally it's not personal, where a commandment is personal. The ordinance is, like a stop sign and things like that, red lights. Those are ordinances, and then the judgments is the judgment of the judge, and do the right, make the right judgment. So all these things you shall do, you shall not sin. And behold, Amarias, the priest leading over you, is for every matter of the Lord. So he sets this man up as the number one priest for the judges, that is. And Zavadias, son of Ishmael, is the igumenos, hegemon in the house of Judah, for every word of the king. So he is another judge of Judah, of the king to the judges, or so forth. And the grammatis, a grammar comes from that, derivative. And the scribes, the Levites, are before you. So here they all are. This is the judicial setup for Israel. Be strong and act, do, and the Lord will be with the good. So if you're not good and you're a judge, boy, I would not want to stand in front of God being an unrighteous judge. Chapter 20, we continue with, I think, the last chapter on Jehoshaphat. We'll find out what happens. As you see here, the nation's war on Jehoshaphat, the valley of Jehoshaphat at the end, I think applies to maybe today. So stay tuned for chapter 20 and join us, and God bless.